Welcome back to the Team to Beat Miami Heat podcast. My name is Amir. Before I get into today's episode, just want to thank everybody for following the podcast on Spotify, also for subscribing to the YouTube channel. If you guys are watching on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. So it's time to pod, y'all. So Dwayane Wade was recently on a podcast, Carmelo Anthony's podcast called 7 p.m. in Brooklyn, and the Miami Heat legend, who is one of the best shooting guards in NBA history, only behind, in my opinion, Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, talked about his NBA journey. And he talked about how a lot of people kind of misjudge or misrank him, or folks now, this day and age, are not really talking about him when they're talking about some of the best players and guards in NBA history. And so Dwayane Wade said on the podcast, I'm not the greatest shooter of all time, but I was great at so many different things. The 3-time NBA champion was upfront, again, about his aspirations, and he wanted to be one of the best players, in the NBA. So Dwayane Wade said, when I had it, I had it. I thought I was going to be, before injuries, I'm like, MJ, I'm coming for you. I mean, that was my mentality. I thought I was coming for MJ. I'm like, I'm going to be the greatest because I figured it out very early on in the league. Right in my second year, when the Miami Heat acquired Shaq, they went to the Eastern Conference Finals. Dwayane Wade was injured, and they went to 7 games against the Pistons. Unfortunately, didn't make it to the finals. But D Wade knew that he was going to be a special player, and he felt a strong sense of confidence early on in his career. And he said, I'm like going to be the greatest because I figured it out very early on in the league. Like I said, so D Wade, just obviously, really, really spectacular two-way player, was one of the best blocking guards under 6'4" in NBA history. Most blocks for someone under 6'4", like all NBA first team, second team, third team, all NBA defensive team, second team, third team. D Wade was special. He's one of the top 75 best players in the NBA. He won 3 championships with the Miami Heat. He was the 5th pick. And, once he got selected to this Miami Heat team, as a rookie, he helped the Miami Heat go to the playoffs. I believe as a 4 seed, they were 41-41 that season. And he helped the Miami Heat win a playoff matchup against the Hornets, against, I think, Baron Davis and David Wesley were the backcourt at the time. And he was playing alongside a really interesting team, a young and upcoming team. He had Rafer Alston at the point guard, who's a veteran, and a shout out to a Fresno State veteran right there. He had Caron Butler, also early draft pick for the Miami Heat a few years before Wade got drafted. And they had Lamar Odom, who they signed from the LA Clippers as a free agent. And they had Brian Grant at center, who was traded to the Miami Heat from the Portland Trailblazers. And they just had this fun, like, young, unique, up-and-coming team with Caron and D Wade, and then you had the veteran in Lamar Odom. And it was an interesting, first year. They made it to the second round. They lost to the Pacers. D Wade had this amazing dunk on Jermaine O'Neal, if you guys remember that poster. And, the second year, Pat Riley was able to pull off one of the best trades in NBA history. He got Shaquille O'Neal while he was in his twilight of his prime. He was 32, I believe, at the time, still in his prime. And Shaq came and said, I'm going to deliver a championship. And they almost did in their first season together when D Wade was a sophomore. And that's when his game elevated. He went from like 16 points per game to like 24 points per game. And he built that confidence playing with Shaq. And in his third year, the rest is history. The Miami Heat won their first championship with D Wade in 2006. And Dwayane Wade was the finals MVP. And he had one of the best, performances of any player in the finals. And so it makes sense, that D Wade, who idolized Michael Jordan, he's from Robbins, Illinois. He's a Chicago Bulls fan. We all know that he left prematurely from the Miami Heat for that year, and went to the Chicago Bulls, his hometown. And he idolized Michael Jordan. He wanted to be like him, and a lot of people compared D Wade to Michael Jordan during that run in '06 when he won that championship. And we know Wade's career skyrocketed early on, with him winning that championship, and he quickly established that he's one of the league's top players before those injuries began to impact his performances post 2010. So after that, that's when the big three formed, and D Wade was able to play with LeBron James, his best friend, recruit Chris Bosh, and he mentioned in the podcast too that he's done so many different things, like being a MVP, Finals MVP, that is, being a superstar, but then having to learn how to play as a role player on his team, essentially. And he was able to take the back seat and allow LeBron to shine. And they went to 4 finals in a row. They won 2. Can't believe they didn't win 3. It was hard to beat the Spurs. So happy they won 1 out of the 2 against Tim Duncan, who's one of the best power forwards of all time, by the way. But he won 3 championships total. Thank you, LeBron, for joining the Miami Heat for those 4 years. And that cemented his legacy. So excited, that D Wade is, trying to reignite that conversation to make sure that these new generations of fans understand how good this guy really was. So anyway, that's all I have for today's episode. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys have a good one.